The biggest myth in our industry is that I say in the startup world is that if you have a great idea and you pitch and put your heart in it and to the right people, it's just gonna work out. And too much focus on the product and the solution you're trying to present when it's really more about the relationships and who you know. Sometimes the best products and the best things come to life and become those unicorn companies because investors and people in this business are human. It's an emotional decision. So it's really important to understand investor psychology, the landscape, and then also getting access to those communities. They're really closed and protected and valuable. So sometimes people won't even get access, to that. And that's why it's really important to us. Me having gone through those communities, been a part of that, being able to share our experience and support businesses that are doing good, and helping them along the way. So really, I think the myth is that, just having a great idea, great product, and just people just seeing what it is going to help you be successful. You really got to build relationships. Your network's your net worth, and that community is what's going to change the trajectory of your business.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Expert. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Saul Sutton, and today we're going to be talking about some great different areas. One is about kind of finding the gaps of a business, or finding the gaps that you can fill, and looking a bit more at strategic execution and how to get a plan and execute on the plan, and building some strong channel partners, and maybe taking even a step back, looking at the big picture of the business, and then breaking it down to some more of the executable areas of it, and then looking at or getting the systems in place to make your business a success, and maybe even doing it a bit more with an agile or a lean budget. So should be a great conversation. With that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Saul.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Glad to be back.
Hey, excited to have you. So with that, before we dive into all the different areas of expertise and kind of going through things, why don't you, for those, and just as a reminder for the audience, so Saul was on our sister podcast, The Inventive Journey. So if you haven't had a chance to go check out his episode, definitely encourage you to do so. But for those that haven't had a chance to catch up on the episode, or just wanting to a quick introduction, tell us, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been blessed with a pretty awesome career to work with some large organizations such as Amazon, supported launching their delivery service in the US. And right now I'm actually the active COO in a medical and tech staffing AI startup, which is growing pretty rapidly, gone through some of the top accelerators, also raised some institutional and VC funding most recently. And then I launched LetsScale, which is a growth strategy consulting firm. Really is my gift. Will allow me to really apply and share some of that knowledge and some of my powerful network with other individuals looking to grow their business.
Awesome. Well, that's a great introduction and a great background. So excited to now chat with you for a bit. So, kind of one of the topics and the areas that I think is easier said than done. In other words, everybody realizes that they should probably do it, but it's not always so easy to execute, is, finding the gaps within your industry. In other words, where you're going to start your business. And, in general, you understand that, right? So you should be filling those gaps. In other words, hey, if it gives you a competitive advantage, something that your competitor, people in the industry aren't doing, then it gives you an opening to create a business. And on the other hand, finding those gaps isn't always, easy to do. So how do you kind of go about within your own business or within the industry in general, finding those gaps and identifying areas to improve on?
I think an important thing is, and one thing most of us know, is our own strengths and weaknesses, right? As an entrepreneur, once you start going on that journey, sharing your story, about 50,000 different weaknesses and gaps come up. But a true entrepreneur acts as a guide, right? You know your strength, but you're going to fill those gaps with other individuals around you. Surround yourself with expertise and experienced individuals to increase your performance and give you the insight you need to create what you're looking for. So I think it's really important, as a guide in your business, to find other experienced guys to support you and fill those gaps, because you're never really going to pick up every strength you need, right? It's just going to take away from what you should be focused on. So really building that team around you is what I think is most important.
So let's say, okay, so you build a team around you. And I think that's always a good way to identify gaps. I think it's always, difficult if you're trying to do it all yourself. You're the only person. It's not that, sometimes you start out as a business, you're the only person because that's by necessity and you don't have the funds or the budget or the ability to bring other people on. But I think as you're looking to grow the business, to bring on people with different talent sets, different points of view, definitely is beneficial in identifying those gaps. And so now as you start to bring those people on, one of the other things that we talked about was how to, kind of get a plan and then execute on it. So, there's plenty of plans out there and some of them are great and never get executed on. There are poor ones that get executed on, and you're always trying to find that balance of getting a good, maybe not a perfect plan. And even if you get a perfect plan, it's probably going to change, but then to be able to identify what should we be planning for and then how do we execute? So how do you go about doing that?
I think what I always encourage individuals to do, whether it's a client or a startup or even more late stage company, is having a picture, a high level vision of where you want to be in like 3 to 5 years, or what you want to accomplish. It's going to determine what you do today, right? If you're a startup, you think you have this unicorn company, then you're going to be geared to exit. You have to be able to kind of reverse engineer that, what you need to accomplish now to get the right investors, to structure the company appropriately. Or if you're a larger organization, you need to look at cost reduction and having the right systems and things in place, or be looking to build and innovate. Like, what team do you need? What people do you need to get to that point? So I think really having a nice snapshot of where you are trying to go will help you focus on what you need today, right? And then once you dial that in, you're going to find the best resources you can afford, right? The best relationships you can afford, but what you're trying to get to, right? So it gives you that visibility so you can plan accordingly. So your strategic initiatives have a higher likelihood of success. It'll still be challenging, but that'll give you a better picture, a playbook, and also give you the resources, the ability to share what you need with people who want to support you, right? You can be really simple, like, hey, I need these things, and they'll know how to be working to support you, on your journey.
No, I think that definitely makes sense. So, and one of the questions, I think that comes up is, people oftentimes will talk about executing on a plan, and there seems to be, and you can correct me where I'm wrong, a difference between just executing a plan versus having a strategic execution. And in my mind, it seems like there's oftentimes a lot of things that you can plan for a business. You can plan for marketing, you can plan for sales, you can plan for product development, manufacturing, you can plan for growth, you can plan for a downturn, you can have a rainy day. And so there's always a lot of things, and you're not able to all at once execute most of the time on all of those things. And so now you're having to balance what you're going to execute on and what order and kind of what priority. So how do you go about being a bit more strategic so you get a plan that has a lot of things that you should do, and yet you don't have the time, bandwidth, or budget to do all of them at once? How do you go about kind of balancing that?
It's a great question, but I think the simple answer is a true plan has a start and a finish, right? Just having ideas, imagining, and putting a whole bunch of things together can also become a distraction. But a real plan has start and finish and execution. And if you plan it out accordingly based on what you need today, you're going to see bottlenecks and things that stop certain things from moving forward, right? So you need to have your clear, defined objectives, the things that matter most to your business, things that keep you up at night, the things you dream about, right? And focus on those few things, right? Like, otherwise, that's why it's good to have a good mentor, someone who's been through it before, to help you dial in. Because one thing you'll find out, even when you have more success, you'll be around even greater minds, greater people. Some of those ideas will make a lot of sense, but if they don't fit your current plan, you need to table them maybe for later, right? It's not like you're going to have, and that's something you will run into later. But if you let yourself get derailed by not having a plan, it can hurt your company, slow you down, even though this is great information you're getting. So any real plan is going to have a start and finish, and then you're really not going to be able to work on a bunch of plans because you're going to know what you need to get to that bigger objective, right? Those are the key objectives. They're going to help you scale, build relationships, and really just share your great brand awareness, right? So that's kind of how I look at it: start and finish.
No, definitely makes sense, and it sounds like a good way to go about approaching it. And I like the idea that a plan isn't just your goals, your aspirations, or things you'd like to accomplish, but it has a start and a finish. It has those time frames why you're going to accomplish it. Now, I think you have to be self-realistic enough that very few small or startups and small businesses stick to their plan exactly, and there's always going to be things that cause you to pivot and adjust. and that's fine, but it doesn't mean that it should be for a lack of a plan, that now you're updating, you're revising your plan based on what you're learning and as you're going along, but it doesn't mean that you should just wing it or shouldn't have a plan at all. Now, one of the, I'm shifting gears just a little bit, but I think it kind of goes along with the conversation. So one of the other things we talked about is kind of building strong channel partners. And so maybe for those out there, first of all, what is a channel partner? And then we can talk a little bit about how to build them.
Yes, so channel partners are really strategic relationships and partnerships where you make sure they're complementary to what you're doing. So I'll use an example. One of our channel partners in my staffing company is an accelerator, or I should say a boot camp for individuals to get tech and coding skills in 90 days. And one of our initiatives is to support minority and underrepresented placements with our corporate clients. So what we do is we found channel partners who, one, some of them don't get paid till their candidates are placed, and they also, a lot of them don't have the resources to place them in big opportunities, let alone enterprise opportunities with Dell, American Express, some of our clients. So we partner with them, so they pick their best alumni, people who be the best fit and match to get them into this enterprise client opportunities, which right now is only like 2 to 5% of the market is diverse individuals, and it's going to take a while to get that caught up. So boot camps that are really accredited and really good are the only ways to do it. So you can do that in your business, looking at what partnerships would complement your business based on their initiative and goals, because you're adding a value resource, and, assuming your product is good and that you definitely can deliver on it. You're going to be strong channel partners, which is really good early on in the business because it's more relationship, it's more emotionally focused, right? The goals, right? Not just a metric or a product. So those channel partners can be strong. And once you get them, you usually keep them forever, right? Those are very long-term relationships. So that's why I think channel partners are key, especially early on. And, because, once people know you care, they care about what you have to say and sharing your product, right? So I think that's a really good way to go about things, and not everything is to be channel partners, but I think that's key, especially if it's going to help you sell your product to other clients, give you access to a community you don't have access to already.
No, I think that definitely makes sense and is a great piece of advice and takeaway. And I think that, building those people that are going to, the partners that are, in parallel to your business or otherwise can be helping it to be successful, can make a big or have a much bigger impact on your business than you might otherwise initially realize. In other words, sometimes I feel like, you have to be a expert in everything, or you have to have all of the resources in-house and you have to do it all on your own. And yet very often the people that can help you are those partners that are, that are in other businesses or in other industries that you can leverage their skills, abilities, expertise to get you much further along than you can able to do on your own or trying to do everything in-house.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the other things that we talked about, which is again another interesting point, is I think one of the skills that I think most people say that they have, and yet is oftentimes one that they don't, is be able to understand the big picture. In other words, everybody kind of thinks of themselves, or most people, as a big picture. Now, there are people that are detailed people, but I think a lot of people say, oh, I know my industry, I know the big picture, I know how things work. And yet oftentimes, that's not necessarily the case. In other words, most people tend to focus on what they have in front of them, what they need to get done, what fires need to be put out, or otherwise what needs to, get taken care of on a day-to-day basis, because those would typically be the most urgent things. And yet oftentimes, the difference between, being able to be successful long-term and floundering is whether or not you're able to long-term look at it and say, okay, what are our objectives? What do we need to do? Where's the industry going? And kind of, people always say, see around a corner, see into the future and those type of things. But how do you kind of understand the big picture within your business or your industry such that you really can step back rather than kind of getting bogged down with only doing the day-to-day or the things that are kind of the putting out the fires?
That's a great question. A lot of different ways, because a lot of people understand their mission, their product, and what they want to develop. But it's really important, one, as a founder, to understand your really buyer persona, your clients, their age, where they live, how they spend, their habits, and also the solution you're creating. And then also, if it's technical, all the support you're going to need around that, right? So for us building our AI in our company, we didn't need to just staff and find people and then put a survey together. We needed behavioral scientists. We needed machine learning. We needed partnerships that could give us data so we could, eventually, build on our AI and how to evolve the product. We needed legal support. We needed found support from other founders to really think about the big picture. But we did have an idea what we wanted to grow up and be, because we had successfully already piloted MVP, already learned from that, and we got a product into the market. And MVP doesn't have to be technical. It can be like, what do you want to start your business with that you can sell and build relationships and deliver 100% customer satisfaction with? And we did that. And then once it gets to the market will tell you how to pivot, how to evolve, right? But I think it's important as a founder not to be stuck on what you want to accomplish and what you believe, but what does the market want? You want to solve a problem, and then that problem will lead to you being able to do other things in your life, growing that vision, that mission. And also a lot of founders, once they exit, they have capital to do other great things, right? But ultimately, once you go on that VC route, you're committed to selling the business, right? If you go down a different route, that's totally different, dividends and all that stuff, not really attractive to VCs either way, but you still got to stay in business. So really, to answer your question, no, big picture really means understanding the small initiatives, like you said, starting and finishing, and getting something into the market, and then using that data and that insight to really find the right partnerships to build and develop from there. So you can really get towards that big picture. But it's really like we focus on everything every 18 months, right? High growth startup perspective for fundraising and our goals we need to accomplish. But yeah, really just, you got to really be able to break that big picture down into quarters or whatever you need to do in every day for it to really be a big picture plan.
No, definitely makes sense. So, and just maybe to follow up on that, kind of now, I don't know if you can or easily break it down, but I mean, what should be the big picture? What are the kind of things that you should be focusing on when you're trying to step back or doing a big picture? Is that kind of more looking at competitors, or looking where the industry is going, or trying to figure out where the industry should be going, or anticipating the unknowns of the future, if you can anticipate the unknowns, so to kind of make them known? But kind of what are the things that you should be focusing on or thinking about when you're trying to step back and look at the big plan or the big picture?
I think one that's really important that's kind of out of your control is timing, right? Is the product and what you're bringing to market at the right time? Is it going to get adoption? A lot of great ideas and things, because the timing wasn't right, don't make it. The next thing you can control is the team, right? Knowing the team you're going to need to be successful. And then the other thing that can kill startup third is lack to access to capital, right? What do you need to put into the market so you can get capital and support to get a strong MVP and build, right? Because you're always chasing money or falling behind, which means like, what do you have something you can sell? So I think then that allows you, if you focus on those things, is the timing right? What team do I need? Like, or what can I do by myself to get it somewhere? What investment I need to make. And then, like I said, also like how much capital do I need? And that's gonna help you dial in, what your big picture is, what your objectives are, and really kind of humble you as to, is it ready for the market? Is it really sellable, right? And then you got to figure out, we like to break things down into 3 categories: rabbits, deers, and whales, right? A rabbit is something that's easy to sell, that we know we can put into the market. It can build trust, maybe a new client offering, but it's not going to sustain the business for very long. A deer is something that is going to take, also it should be short to close a rabbit, like something you can close in like a week. A deer, for example, in our model is some like 3 weeks to 4 weeks. You can close it. It's going to sustain the business a little bit longer. It's going to take a little bit more strategy. It's going to solve a little bit more of a meaningful problem for a client, or it was came off of things we identified from a rabbit opportunity, assessing their business. And a whale is a bigger enterprise opportunity or a larger client or a long-term partnership. It's going to take you maybe 6 months to a year, maybe longer, to close that deal. If you only focus on that rabbit, the whales, the big picture, you're going to go out of business, right? Because it takes a long time to set those up. They're great if you can survive that time, but you kind of need to know, which means you need to understand your product, how to sell, the right people in place so you can focus on the bigger deals. And then, like I said, and now dial in your big picture. But know those people are not going to help you without knowing your big picture, and also knowing you have the things to get it done on a day-to-day basis. So hopefully that really dials it in. That's how we look at it, to make sure people have the right guides in place, the right strategies in place. And then when they start, the execution is going to actually be successful.
No, and I think that's a great point. And the difference between the rabbit, the deer, and the whales is a lot of times people always focus on the whales, and makes sense to the point they're saying all I need to do is if I land this one big client, it'll set me up, it'll give me the income, and it will be able to sustain the business, and which is probably great and true. But to your point, most of those times it is not just a quick hey, I'm going to put in a week's worth of effort and land those whales, because almost all the time, unless you have a pre-existing relationship relationship, or you have something that is just so hot in the market that everybody's beating down your doors, which for 95% of the businesses isn't true, then you're going to have to take that stepwise approach of saying, while we're trying to get those whales, while we're doing, landing those, we need to have the other things that are going to sustain us as we're doing it. So I think that that's always a great realization that oftentimes gets overlooked, just because people tend to focus on the whales because they have the biggest potential for the greatest return, but are also one that you tend to neglect the amount of work and time that it's going to take to get them. So now, as we kind of hit maybe one of the last topics before we wrap up the episode, one of the other things that I think in one sense has become the in vogue, or a lot of times you hear it a lot, especially when you go to the small business events or meetups or whatnot, is to be a lean or agile. And so in that sense, I always kind of cringe at that term, not because it's not makes sense and not true, but just because it's such an overused term that I think it's lost some of its meaning, or it's lost some of its effectiveness. But now, as you are as businesses are thinking about how do we do this lean, and lean oftentimes means on a limited budget or a limited or bandwidth, and you're also trying to be agile so that you're flexible. How do you actually in real terms go about accomplishing that so that it will set you up for success?
Yeah, so at LetsScale, I developed a proprietary omni-channel strategy that really focused on what that really is. And once in the beginning, when you start your business, it's hard to make data-driven decisions, right? But you really can if you're looking at simple things like sales, customer engagement, success, maybe who's adopting your processes. But ultimately, any company we believe can do this. So SCALE stands for do you have the right systems in place, which give you visibility in the organization, right? And are going to help you accomplish your goals. C stands for cultural alignment. Do people understand the corporate and business objectives, even yourself, right? Which means corporate, like high level, get investors, sales, business, day-to-day, acquiring customers, and so on. And the agile for us is, one, does your team who understands the objectives down to the person who keeps the building clean, able to make decisions that are going to support the big picture in the business, and without overly complicated processes, right, or approval processes that are going to bog the business down? Are they equipped to make decisions in an agile way that are going to help you scale and grow, or ask the right questions to spark innovation, right, and insight? Lean really is, do you have ways and things in place to identify waste or opportunities to grow? Lean doesn't just mean cost reduction. What do you have in place for, hey, we're killing this, we're doing better than expected, how do we keep doing this thing without it just happening and you miss it, or assuming things are going good? And then we focus a big one so the E for us, some people think it means effective, but it doesn't. It means efficiency. Effective means hitting KPIs, doing the bare minimum, clocking out, we hit our goal. Efficiency means all those things are working together as intended. And then we have a way that we kind of apply that strategy into, placing guys in our clients' businesses. So I think it's really important to, be looking at all those things together. And the agile and lean piece come from, people understand those objectives, the culture, and your mission statement, and all those things. That's how we look at it.
No, I think that's definitely some great piece of advice and some great takeaways. So, well, as we start to wrap towards the end of the podcast, I always like to wrap it up with one question. So we'll jump to that now. So the question I always like to ask is, within your industry, what is the biggest myth and why is it wrong?
The biggest myth in our industry is that, I'd say in the startup world, is that, if you have a great idea and you pitch and put your heart in it and to the right people, it's just gonna work out. And too much focus on the product and the solution you're trying to present, when it's really more about the relationships and who you know. Sometimes the best products and the best things come to life and become those unicorn companies because investors and people in this business are human. It's an emotional decision. So it's really important to understand investor psychology, the landscape, and then also getting access to those communities. They're really closed and protected and valuable. So sometimes people won't even get access to that, and that's why it's really important to us. Me having gone through those communities, been a part of that, being able to share our experience and support businesses that are doing good, and helping them along the way. So really, I think the myth is that just having a great idea, great product, and just people just seeing what it is going to help you be successful. You really got to build relationships. Your network's your net worth, and that community is what's going to change the trajectory of your business.
No, and I think that's a great takeaway. And I think that, oftentimes kind of the people think, well, if I build a better mousetrap, better business, and that's all it's going to matter, people are going to be banging down my door because my product is going to be so amazing. And it's not to disregard that you do need a good product, you do need a good business or service you're offering or whatever that is. That's certainly a component. But I think to your point is building those relationships, building that ability for people to want to partner with you, to trust you, to want to, be a client, and those type of things is oftentimes a much greater indicator of success. So I think that's a great takeaway and a great myth to dispel. So, well, now if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
The best way to reach out to me and learn more about what I'm working on is through LinkedIn. Pretty responsive there. You can also email me for a free consultation. We're here to serve and support, and everything we do is customized based on the business objectives. And becoming a part of LetsScale family gives you an access to a breadth of vetted, proven guides and relationships through partners, even if it's not working with us directly. So just want to connect with the right people looking to get there sooner than you would without us. And a blind leap of faith is always better with a consultant than by yourself. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out to you, connect up to you, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So but with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you can help us to be able to share this expertise to make sure we can help as many startups and small businesses as possible, you can just go to, or if you can click review or leave us a review, click share, click subscribe, and makes it so we can help as many businesses as possible by sharing this expertise. And with that, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup, your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com. Grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Saul, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you.